now go to Parks and Recreation. It's chaired by Roxanne Murphy.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Parks and Recreation Committee. I am joined by fellow committee members Terry Borneman and Jack Weiss. We have two agenda items. The first is a different kind of green. We're going to talk about the Lake Padden Golf Course lease modification. And James King, would you please take it away?
I can do that. Thank you. James King, Parks and Recreation Department. So, Lake Padden Golf Course lease modification. Participation in golf has gone down nationwide over the last few years. And so at Lake Padden Golf Course, over the last 7 years, we've seen a 23% decrease in the number of rounds played. So that's making it difficult for the operator to make ends meet with that kind of decrease in revenue. So this, what's before you today is to reduce that lease by 23% and to make it so that they can be more viable. Currently, they are in default of their payments. Part of this lease amendment is getting them back up to full payment. It doesn't change the term of the lease. The lease runs out in the end of 2017. This just makes sure that they're in compliance with their payments and that they can move forward, hopefully, and keep the golf course running. In addition to that, there's also 11% reduction. That is because we've taken a portion of the lease where we used to the city used to keep a certain amount of money for capital improvements. Really what turned into being was maintenance stuff, fixing sprinkler heads and things like that. So we've taken that out of the lease, the payment, and put it back on the operator to do those basic maintenance things. It doesn't make sense for us to be out there doing those things. So, and this is, I think it's important to note, we really looked hard at the numbers of this. The golf course is managed as an enterprise fund. It does cover all of the expenses that the city has, including maintenance, taking care of roofs and paint and sewer systems and things like that. So this is the minimum amount that the city needs to keep operating the golf course. And it's important to know that Josh Fish is here from the golf course in case you have any questions. With that, I'll turn it back to the committee.
Committee members, any questions? Councilmember Borneman?
Yeah, I would just like to point out the 23% decrease that they're seeing here. This is not just at Padden Golf Course. This appears to be all over. Just read an article on the death of golf and the drop in people golfing, the rounds golf all over the country are declining. Younger people aren't picking up golf as it was. So it's not the way this is managed necessarily. This is a national trend in this, but there are still a lot of people that do enjoy the sport, and if this covers our cost, I will move approval.
Councilmember Weiss?
So you said that, James, you said that it doesn't make sense, or I guess I'm paraphrasing now, but it doesn't make sense for the city to do the maintenance. Why is that?
So,
if we're getting a payment associated with it.
So what we had been doing in the past, the way the lease was structured, there was approximately, and it went up every year a percentage, but as of this year there was approximately $23,000 that was part of the lease payment. The city held that $23,000, and the way the old lease read, we were supposed to give it back to them to do basic maintenance. There's not an easy way to do that. With financial
Enough
code. So we took a look at it and said, that doesn't make any sense. We rewrote, or this amendment to the lease puts that burden back on them to take care of things like sprinkler heads or a drainage pipe that might get clogged or basic sort of everyday kind of maintenance that goes on at a golf course. The major maintenance is still ours. Like, for example, the main feed supply for the irrigation system, the main pipe and the pump system and roofs and things like that will still be, those are considered capital projects, and those are still the cities, and we'll go through that process of doing those projects. But this is the smaller day-to-day kind of stuff.
Okay. And then reading through the lease agreement, there were a couple things that, I mean, it spells out quite a bit about who's responsible for what, and I had a couple questions about that. One had to do about irrigation. Who's actually, I mean, Parks ends up not watering a lot of their parks because it costs the Parks Department money to buy the water from the city. Who actually pays for the water that is irrigating the course?
So it actually comes out of Lake Padden. It's a system that's been in place since the beginning of the golf course. There's a pump down on the edge of Lake Padden and a main pipe that comes up into the golf course. So the only cost is the maintenance of that system and the electricity.
And who pay? Do we pay for electricity, or is that part of the tenant?
I'll have to get back with you on that. I believe they pay it, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. And then in terms of the chemical applications, because it's Lake Padden, are we pretty square in terms of making sure that we're not putting types of chemicals on the course that will then leach into Lake Padden itself?
So they report to us monthly any activity as far as chemicals that go on the course. There are some. Golf courses are a very intensely managed piece of lawn, if you will, and it does take fertilizer. It does take some pesticides or some weed killers and things like that. But we've worked very closely with them to make sure that they're doing soil tests, to make sure that they're putting just what's needed down, that they're not putting too much down, and work with them with different kinds of chemicals to make sure we're being as friendly to the Lake Padden watershed as we can.
Okay, I had one last question. Thank you. I went to a Bells game the other day and at Joe Martin Field, and when I was coming out, I was flagged down by a resident or citizen that was concerned about the fact that there were no recycling facilities at Joe Martin Field. And I see in the lease that there's also a provision in here about recycling, saying basically that, you know, whatever the city or Parks Department declares what type of recycling program should be there. What is the relationship that we have with them, and is it going far enough for us to say that that's a green set of greens?
So we're taking a look at that system-wide right now. Ted Carlson and I met with the company just last week to talk about how do we do this efficiently. We've tried, for example, at Civic Field before to do a major recycling. The problem is sorting it. It's hard to get the public to sort it right. Then it becomes very expensive and labor intensive to do it. What we're going to start trying to do is start with bottles and cans. We know those are pretty easy. People are pretty used to sorting those out. We think that's a good step in the right direction, and then continue to go further on those kinds of recycling programs. But we're looking at it, again, across the board.
Okay. At least that's a start. All right. Thank you.
Well, one thing I'd like to add is that while the golf numbers have been going down, there are still so many members of our community that really appreciate this golf course. So I don't want to make it seem like we're trying to save something for the sake of nobody being there. There are a lot of people in our community that really enjoy this amenity. Council members, any other questions or feedback? Mayor Linville.
And I just want to say that when you take action on this, this will allow us to leave an entity managing that golf course that has been doing a very good job of maintaining an asset that we have, which is the golf course, in very good condition, so that we're not letting that asset deteriorate as far as how the grounds are managed and the rest of it. So we appreciate what they're doing for our asset, which is what it is. And we're looking overall at all the leases that we have on all the properties that we own that somebody else manages for us. So this is just one instance that came up now, and then we'll be coming back to you with an overall look at how should we be writing the contracts for the assets that we have that people manage for us.
Love to entertain a motion.
You had one from Terry.
I already made a motion.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
didn't hear that. And now I need what's in Jean's cup. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the Lake Patton Golf Course lease modification. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Seeing none? Okay, we will move this forward tonight with a unanimous recommendation. Item number 2 is a bid award for Cordata Trail to Elementary School, bid number 34B-2015. James King, please.
Thank you. So we're excited to have this back in front of you. As you remember, it was in front of you a month or so ago, and we rejected the bid, or you rejected the bid. So we're excited to be back again. This is the trail connection from the end of Horton Road going south, connecting down and across the Cordata Elementary School and connecting to it. And then we're just on another piece of it, we're working with the developer that would then connect it all the way down to June Road. Pretty neat extension of the greenway system up there, 1,700 linear feet. It is important to note that Raz Construction did object, did a bid protest, and there's the letter in the packet, both from them and then the city's response. Under the bidder's responsibility criteria, there are a lot of different things, but Raz's objection was that the other bidders, or the winning bidder, was operating out of their home in the county. So there's lots of requirements that we have, but obeying zoning code in the county is not something that we require our contractors to do. So we recommend that you approve this bid to P&P Excavating, and that in the amount of $378,000 and some change. It's also important to note that this is park impact fees that are going towards making this improvement. And Gina Austin is here, who's the project manager, if you have any questions.
Committee members, any questions? Councilmember Weiss?
Gina, what is the anticipated timeline to have the developer go and complete the other segment of the trail down to Division, to have this a full trail system?
I believe they're in permits right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Sorry.
Well, one other question too is that in regards to the protest, well, maybe we deal with that afterwards, after the vote. But I guess I had a request that I wanted to pose, so I'll wait.
Councilmember Waterman.
Yeah, I would move that we reject the protest from Raz Construction and award the bid to P&P Excavating.
Any other questions or feedback? Okay, seeing none. So the motion is to reject the protest and to award the bid to P&P Excavating in the amount of $378,832.85. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, seeing none, we will bring this forward with a unanimous recommendation this evening at tonight's council meeting. End of committee. Oh, wait,
Roxanne.
Jack had one thing, sorry.
Yeah, I was wondering if, Mayor, if there is a possibility of having staff look at not only this issue as far as, I guess, office or business location as far as a requirement within our bid packet, and the other one that came earlier, which had to do with this $1 million threshold that to me, it seems like an easy fix with that would be just part of boilerplate, that we just say any bid, whether it's $5,000 or $5 million, that if any bid comes in over $1 million, then you're triggering this other provision of the of our bidding code,
We can definitely look at that.
and as well as this one here.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. We're going to need to move on. What do you need, James? Go ahead.
Just really quickly, I wanted to make sure you were all aware of the ribbon cutting tomorrow at 5 o'clock on the ASB Trail. We're
Oh,
pretty
that's
darn
right.
excited to
Thank you
have
for
that
reminding us.
open.
Yeah.
So it's just a quick reminder.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, we
Thank
will
you.
now take a minute break and we'll go to the committee.